What's going on, everybody? Robert, Slavs Free Talk. Let's talk about this big oof that was Warner Brothers and DC's Flash film. They just announced that it will be actually coming to streaming on August 25th. That's pretty big. I mean, it came out in theaters in June. You're talking about just over a 2-month turnaround for it to come out on streaming. And it's not just digitally, it's streaming on Max on August 25th. That's just 6 days from now of me recording this. It's pretty crazy how bad this movie truly did. And, there's so much of us that, or so many people want to talk about this like it was a huge box office bomb and an indication of how James Gunn's DCEU is going to be. And that's not the case. That's not true. I've said multiple times that, the current DCEU, the universe, the franchise that started in 2013, has grown so stale and has such a bad taste in everyone's mouths. Not just the DC fans, not just the Snyder fans, not just the Snyder cult. No, the general audience, the mass audience, they have just grown tired of the DCEU. Let's not forget that it's the same audience who really rejected Zack's vision. Then they tried to make their adjustments, tried to change, tried to do different things, and boom, here we are now, right now, again, where it's being rejected. It's constantly rejected. This franchise, from the very beginning, has been rejected by the mass audience. And that's something that a lot of people, specifically in the Snyder fandom, just don't quite understand. Sure, they'll sit there and point out Batman vs. Superman made $860 million. They'll point out that Wonder Woman made almost $800 million. They point out that Aquaman made $1 billion. But even a blind squirrel gets a nut from time to time. Batman vs. Superman made $800 million because it was Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman on the big screen together for the first time. Coming out of that, the audience did not like that movie. Wonder Woman made almost $800 million because it was the first, truly the first comic book genre superhero-led or woman-led film. Aquaman made $1 billion. I don't know why, honestly. It's a good movie, don't get me wrong, it is a good movie. But is it $1 billion movie? I've never thought that. I've never thought that Aquaman was something that should have made $1 billion. So, looking at the overall DCEU, it's easy to see why something like The Flash failed as badly and as miserably as it did. It's disappointing. Without a doubt, it is disappointing. But really, it should have been expected. Blue Beetle's out this weekend. I'm actually going to see it here shortly. And I'm excited for it. I've heard some great things, not just from critics, but also from the audience. They really enjoy this film. So I'm looking forward to it. And I had a feeling this movie was going to do a lot better, at least from a critical standpoint and a response from the audience standpoint than the past few films. But even then, this movie, Blue Beetle, isn't going to be a $600 million film. It's not going to be a $1 billion film. And then we have Aquaman 2 coming out at the end of the year. Can it follow up a $1 billion movie that was Aquaman 1? Which, again, I don't think should have been or was really warranted of being a $1 billion movie. But you sit there and you take a look. This DCEU, since 2013, because you take a look even at Man of Steel, fans just didn't, the general audience did not respond positively to that movie. That was an issue. I love it. I think it's a masterpiece. I think it's the best superhero origin movie to ever come out. But the general audience didn't respond well to it. They didn't respond well to BVS. And it just continued through the rest of the DCEU franchise. And there was no way of continuing it. And that was kind of a big problem. Back in 2017, when all of this happened with Justice League, and there was that big shift in removing Zack Snyder, there should have been a bigger shift in DC films. There's been this belief for so long from the studio, and I'm hoping it's still not there, but for many years there's this belief that they had to follow and do what Christopher Nolan did with the Dark Knight trilogy, which was a little more gritty, a little more grounded, darker. And that doesn't always work. I'm not saying you have to go to the complete opposite extreme and do what Marvel has done with some of their films. But there is a middle ground. Marvel has found it, but they got away from it again. DC has yet to find that middle ground. And that's where I hope James Gunn comes in, because I think he's one of the ones that found that middle ground in Marvel. Guardians of the Galaxy, specifically the first and third one, had a great balance of meaningful, impactful storytelling, along with some of the goofiness that you should get from a funny books film. DC is a little bit different. I get that DC should be a little more grown up than Marvel. It has been in the comics to a certain extent as well. Not saying that Marvel doesn't have some grown up stories, but overall, when you think of the two, you've always thought about, okay, this one's a little more grown up than this one. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think James Gunn is going to be able to pull this off with the DCU. But again, it comes down to, well, what it really comes down to is how they market it and push that this is a new DC franchise, a new DC universe to the audience. I do believe, I'm one of the ones who believes that they should have pushed Blue Beetle to the end. They should have pushed Aquaman out first before Blue Beetle, especially since Blue Beetle is going to connect, at least the character will connect to James Gunn's DCU. But, I think, I said this the other day on the live show, James Gunn needs to clarify what's going on. He needs to address the elephant in the room, or the elephants in the room, who happen to be all of the actors he has yet to say are not in the DCU. He has yet to say that this is a full reboot. That's what the DCU needs. That's what the brand needs. This connection, this idea to how the audience responds and has responded to the DCEU is not just because of who directed it or what actors were in it. It's the connection to the universe. That is what really has hurt these films. And I think that if James Gunn and Peter Safran want to be successful with the DCU, they have to detach themselves completely have to detach themselves from the DCEU. It sucks. We won't see Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, Gal Gadot, Ezra Miller, any of those. Margot Robbie would no longer be Harley Quinn. John Cena would not be Peacemaker. And while those are some great portrayals of the characters, and we have those projects that they were in to go back to, but I think for the success, the longevity, and for the audience, you need to move away from them. You need to. And I hope James Gunn listens to this. I hope he understands this. I hope if they weren't planning on doing that they course correct. Because I think that's the only way you're going to truly get the general audience involved and excited about the new DCU. And believe it or not, I think this would go a long way in starting to put to rest in shutting up the Snyder cult. Because They keep coming at James Gunn. They keep coming at Peter Safran because they're like, you don't have Henry Cavill, but you're keeping this person. You don't have Ben Affleck, but you're keeping this person. And that would go away. That would just completely go away. It is a completely new universe. Let's move on and be done with it. Let me know your thoughts. I want to hear what you think about all of this. I'm very, very curious. But with all that said, everyone, thank you so much. Hit that like button, hit subscribe, follow us on all the socials, and I'll talk to all of you later.